everyone, and welcome to the Erie County Rath Building as we're here to release the 2026 Erie County proposed budget as was prepared by our team in the budget office and my office. I'm Erie County Executive Mark Poloncarz, and I'm joined by our Deputy County Executive Lisa Chimera, our Budget Director Mark Cornell. We're also joined by Kim Kasda, the Deputy Budget Director, as well as my Chief of Staff, Benjamin Swanenkamp, and as well by Karen Gambino from Deaf Access Services, who's offering the American Sign Language today. Before I get into the budget, I did want to talk briefly about something that a blockbuster story that came out yesterday on Politico in regards to bigoted, racist, sexist, misogynistic, just horrible comments that were made by young Republicans on a chat group that unfortunately also includes some young Republicans from New York, including the New York State Young Republican Chair, as well as individuals who worked locally, including under Senator Rob Ortt in Niagara County. This is probably some of the worst things I have ever seen, even praises of Hitler. But I think it's important for people to understand that that cannot be tolerated in any civil society. I'm glad to see that that has been denounced by some of the Republican leaders in our state, but it was sickening to see the statements that were made, the horrible things that were said about African Americans, references to we're going to kill people, send them to the gas chamber if they don't support us, and it was just something that just cannot exist in a civil society. And normally I wouldn't talk about a national story like this, but there were direct references to our region, Western New York and New York State, to the individuals who made those comments on this chat room. And I'm hopeful that none of those individuals have a role ever again in politics or government. We can disagree on policy, and we have to have disagreements on policy to have a strong society, but we cannot go down to the lowest common denominator, which is just pure hatred. And that's what was in that chat room, was pure hatred. For a long time, I've said I truly believe the modern Republican Party didn't stand for more than power and money, acquire more power to make more money. But what we saw yesterday was even beyond that. It was just horrible, and it was unacceptable. And if any of those individuals had been in my administration, they would have been immediately fired. And I call upon all fellow elected officials, regardless of your political party and your political leanings, to denounce what was included in that story, because it is just terrible. We witnessed one of the worst racial mass shootings in our country in Buffalo, and the statements that were made about African Americans in that chat room were just terrible. And I can't believe here we are in 2025 and we have such horrible racist, bigoted statements being made by individuals in the political system and in the governmental system. They just thought nobody was watching, and now the information has come out. They all need to be terminated from any jobs if they're in the political system. They all need to be terminated from any jobs if they're in the governmental system, and find out that there's ramifications for horrible beliefs. So I give credit to Politico for this story. It was a strong story, and it certainly showed the dark underbelly that exists, unfortunately, among some young Republicans. Not denigrating every young Republican, but some young Republicans who believe it's okay to say and believe horrible things. With that, I'll move into the 2026 budget. The 2026 general fund budget is about $2.3 billion for all funds. That includes sewer funds, other types of utility funds. But the general budget itself is a little less than $2.1 billion. We'll get back into this slide a little later in the presentation, because we're going to move right away to how we pay for it. And what you see are the revenues associated with our $2.1 billion budget, of which half of it is related to sales tax, and of that half, as we'll talk about a little later, approximately 45% of that is actually shared. It goes out, it comes in through Erie County government, and then it goes out through Erie County government to cities, towns, villages, and school districts. But we have, as a portion of the budget, the vast majority is sales tax. Then the next largest would be locally shared property tax or locally derived property tax, and then state and federal aid, which makes up much less than people think. and federal aid, which we're expecting to see drop in the future. The total property tax levy is $347 million. That is 1.5% growth on the levy from 2025. It's the smallest levy growth we've had in some time. We actually leave the majority of the growth that we could have based on the assessment values on the table because we did not want to go over the property tax cap. So we're only getting 1.5% growth, $5.3 million. If we had just kept the tax rate the same, we would have had another $22.5 million of revenue that could have been generated by Erie County government. And we've given the libraries a greater share of the total $347 million. So the Erie County property tax levy, so this goes for county services outside of the library, is $316 million, of which there's 1.35% growth. And the property tax levy for the library is $31.9 million, or 3% growth from last year. So we actually gave a greater percentage of growth to the library than we did kept it internally. It's one of the lowest growths that the library's seen in the last couple of years, but it's not beyond the realm of what we've seen in the past because in prior year they had 2% growth. And we have increased the library support by $12 million, or 60%, since 2012. We are investing in our libraries in Erie County government. The property tax rate in total is $3.09 per thousand. That is a 20% reduction from the 2025 tax levy amount. It stays under the New York State tax cap. It's the lowest rate, once again, ever, at least we can determine, going back into the 1800s, and it's based on sound budgeting. This is a sound, balanced budget. It was a tough one to craft, as we'll talk a little bit more, and then we're looking at some very difficult times going forward in 27 and beyond as a result of the big shift that's coming from the big ugly bill. But I can tell the people of Erie County that the property tax rate is going down, and for most Erie County residents, they will see a tax cut. So here's what Erie County's property tax rate has done over time since 2012. You can see it was pretty level and then has dropped substantially in the last few years, such that we will be at $3.09 if the proposed budget was approved as is. Now the legislature is going to have an opportunity at it, but right now it is actually the lowest rate it'll ever been. It's a 39% decrease in the tax rate since 2012, or $1.94 per thousand. And when you do a comparison to the other counties in Erie, Western New York, it is the lowest by far. At $3.09, the closest would be Niagara County at $4.83, and then you see the rest of the counties. This is not to denigrate the other counties. It's just to say, as people often go, your taxes are high in Erie County. Our actual tax rate in Erie County is lower than every other county in Western New York, and is one of the lower ones in New York State. And to do a comparison to look at the impact, here's a house in West Seneca that, if based on the proposed tax rate, assessments, the way the system has worked with equalization rates, we expect that this homeowner will see a $46 reduction in their taxes. Here's a house in Cheektowaga on Barbados Drive. This homeowner will see a $58.64 reduction in their county taxes. Here's a town of Boston house, Lower East Hill Road. This homeowner will see a $101.39 reduction. And then this is a big one, Buffalo, because of the revaluation, reassessment, equalization rate adjustments. This house in Buffalo on Woodward Avenue will see a $500 reduction in their Erie County taxes as compared to 2025 because of the respread that was done in the city of Buffalo. So for quite a number of homeowners in the city of Buffalo, they're going to see a fairly substantial property tax cut for their houses due to the reassessments, revaluations, and the equalization adjustments. And we're proud of this because this just shows that we have been able to hold the line on taxes, and people are going to come up with significant cuts. Now, I wanted to talk about the property tax make up the smallest part of a property tax bill. Often people say their taxes are going up. How can you say you're cutting taxes? Well, you got to look at it in the totality of the situation. This is from a house in Williamsville. So you have the two lines on the top, which are highlighted, which is the library tax and the county tax, and then you have everything else. which includes the sewer, town, and school. And because this is Williamsville, it actually doesn't even include the village. But this is the bill that will go out from a prior year, sample bill. And what we're showing is that, yes, your taxes in total could go up depending on what you're paying, and combined with everything else that's included in your taxes, but your county tax could still be going down. So in this example here, the combined county tax of the library and the county only makes up 16% of this tax bill, with more than 50% made up by school taxes. And then the town, and then there's sewer charges and other things that are added in. So we wanted to highlight this because here's a tax bill where it's over $9,000 in total taxes, of which the combined total for the county is only $1,500. And the vast majority of it, or the majority of it, I should say, is made up by school taxes. So when people go out there and say, you're lying, polling cars, my taxes did not go down. Well, I'm not lying about the county portion. The county tax rate went down. Their county taxes could have gone down, but they still could have seen an increase in overall taxes because of everything else that's included, including school taxes, town taxes, other types of charges that exist, and then there's also village taxes, which come out at a different time of the year. So, of course, our budget is made up of sales tax revenue. At least 50% of our revenues are basically sales tax revenue. We've seen 4.3% growth year to date, with a modest growth projected for the rest of the year. We are projecting 1.5% growth over the 2025 year-end projection. So if we do that, we will have received next year $614 million budgeted, and then we're sharing $492 million among the cities, towns, villages, school districts, and NFTA. So when people talk about the 8.75% tax, the first 4% goes to New York State. So then we're left with 4.75% left over. Of that total, Erie County retains about 55% of it. The rest of it goes to our cities, towns, villages, school districts. And here's how it's broken down in 25. And here's how it's broken down and proposed and expected to be broken down in 26. Interestingly, people often talk about the city of Buffalo and the revenue issues it has. We're projecting the city will get $120 million of all the sales tax that are generated in Erie County next year, which is approximately 11%, and the school district will receive $63 million. The comparison, when you include all the cities, towns, and villages other than Buffalo, you have $142 million that's going to go to them and $120 million that's going to the city of Buffalo. If this was based on population, the city of Buffalo would receive a substantial less amount. But the city of Buffalo gets 2 bites at the apple under the sales tax sharing agreement. So they get actually more than what would be a population-based sharing of the sales tax. And I bring this up because there's always been talk about, well, we should change the sales tax sharing formula. The city already gets 2 bites at the apple, and it's already getting more sales tax than if we went to a population-based formula. So any change that went to a population-based formula would hurt the city of Buffalo. They'd actually receive less. So I think it's important for people to understand that, because we do generate a lot of sales tax in Erie County, but we're sharing 45% of it from the local share with all of these other entities. Every school district gets money from the sales tax, even those that just have a few students in Erie County, like Pioneer. Pioneer Central is really in another county, but it has a few students in Erie County, so we share some of the sales tax with Pioneer, just like we do with every other school district in Erie County. Other revenues, this is just a list of other revenues that we have. State aid, we're expecting a slight increase. Federal aid, a slight increase, though that's going to change in 2027. And then other amounts that we generate, which are not substantial, truthfully. Our expenses, nearly half of it goes to Health and Human Services. The vast majority of what Erie County does is related to Health and Human Services. We're in the Rath Building. I wouldn't say a majority, but the largest amount of floors dedicated in the Rath Building is for Health and Human Services, like we have in a lot of other buildings. And then you see the kind of purplish, light purple, maybe blue, I guess, pie chart color on the top, which is economic and community development. That also includes the sales tax sharing with the other municipalities. So we're not spending over $500 million necessarily on community development, but it includes the sales tax sharing. The general fund expense summary, $2.1 billion. We are seeing an increase of 5.75% over 2025. The majority of that, 71%, is due to mandated expenses, including increased amounts for sales tax sharing. We're going to be paying more to ECMC on intergovernmental transfer payments. This is a big one, $14.5 million more above and beyond what we're already paid. An increase in the safety net program. This is a direct result of the big ugly bill. As they're making changes, less people are qualifying for federal programs, but under state law, they still might qualify for the safety net program. So we're seeing a $14 million increase on this. That 80% of it is paid for by Erie County, and then 20% is basically paid for by states and a minor amount from the feds. Increases in child care, family assistance, other types of lines. So these are all mandated. We can't change these. And that's 71% of the increase of the $113 million is coming from mandated amounts. We also have increases in our salary structure and our benefits under contracts that we've negotiated. We made significant investments in the last few years, including over at the Sheriff's Office and the DA, and now those jobs are full-time, 365 days a year. If we created new jobs last year, they only were funded for part of the year, basically, because they hired the people in mid-year. So there's additional costs that we've had to incur, including moving the sheriff's jail and holding center deputies to a 25-year pension plan, which was really requested and fought for, and we agreed to do, but there are long-term costs associated with that. And the new ambulance service is now full-time with 59 new life-saving positions across the board. If we had increased our budget by all of the departmental requests, we would have been spending another $32.6 million more. We rejected 89 new position requests. We deleted 50 total positions, 12 full-time. We reduced overtime. We made adjustments to fringe benefits. We cut discretionary spending lines in departments and we didn't cut not-for-profits and culturals, but there was a ridiculous amount of requests this year above and beyond what they normally ask for. And we cut a lot of those new requests. There actually is small growth in the arts and cultural line, but the amount that they asked for was beyond pale. We had a number of not-for-profits come up to us and said, we're losing funding, we're losing our federal funding streams, people are not giving to us, the county will make us whole, correct? And the answer is no. The county cannot make them whole. We have our own issues we have to deal with. We can assist. We offered small increases, really like 2.5% to 3%, nothing much, but the requests were really astronomical. We're actually in the almost 50% category of increases from what we currently give. These are the general fund cut positions that were requested, 119, including 62 in the Sheriff's Office, 19 in the parks, 14 in highways. We did approve 30 new positions, 7 in parks, which are all related to Willowdale, and most of those will not take effect until later in the year when the park actually is open. And then there were 5 new jobs in real property to allow us to create a real property division to basically determine all the parcels that the county owns, sell many of these parcels that we no longer need. We believe this will be actually revenue neutral, generating revenue for the county. Sheriff's Office to get 3 new positions. Highways, there's 5. It's 1 new crew chief per district. We've been doing this for the last years, and this is the last year we're doing it. And then we deleted a total of 50 positions across the board that were vacant. Almost every one of these positions was vacant for more than 1 year. We have a charter mandated law that says if a position has been vacant for 1 year, it has to be eliminated. We've been telling department heads that for a while, and they're like, oh, that's great. We eliminated them. They're being eliminated. If you haven't filled the job in a year, you don't need the job. There's some new expenses. In the end, we have totals of $2.3 million, or just a 2% increase. 30 new positions, 29 full-time with deletions of net 20 or 17 full-time. Just get through this. These are a lot of new positions. Nothing really exciting. I just talked about them. 85% of the county budget is mandated. We've talked about that before, with the largest line being Sheriff Police Services. Did you realize that the Sheriff's Police Services or Road Patrol Division is not mandated? It does not have to exist. We choose to have it exist. By law, we don't have to have it. The libraries are number 2, Public Works, Highways. The Highway Department is not mandated to exist, but we have it because it's a good thing. Tourism, parks, these are all the non-mandated. This is what everyone assumes is county government. This is when they think about county government, they think about everything on this list here. It's the other stuff that we do, the Health and Human Services, that makes up the vast majority of county government. Tourism promotion, due to the new local law on vacation rentals, all future tax revenues from those are dedicated towards tourism promotion. So there's $14 million from the hotel tax, 2.3 it's going to convention center, 4.5 that's going to the convention center, 7.5 or 7.15 to Visit Buffalo. That is the highest amount we've given them in many years, and it's a result of the local law. And then we're proposing to give $8.6 million in operating support for 110 arts and cultural institutions, which is the largest amount that we've proposed in some time. It is a small growth, certainly not as much as what they asked for, which was much higher. The capital program is a big one, $122 million in capital investment for 26, $73 million of which would be bonded, $20 million PAYGO, which means it comes out of our operating budget, and $29 is a shared amount from the state and federal government. $30 million for big generational public safety projects, including $20 million for the initial design and engineering for a combined holding center and correctional facility in Alden. This is after the feasibility study and the discussions with all. We've decided to go with a new facility in Alden, and the first $20 million of that is slated to be borrowed next year. This is an estimate of a $430 million cost. This is a big nut, which will have a $25 to $30 million annual debt service, which would in all likelihood require Erie County to vote over the tax cap in the first year of the debt service to ensure that we could pay it without having to cut everything else. $10 million for a regional communications trunked radio system. We have an older system. We want to work with our partners at the NFTA, Amherst, other places to do our trunked radio system. The first $10 million is to create the system, and then the $20 million in the following year would be outfit all of the EMS vehicles, all the county departments, you name it, with the equipment needed to access the network. The remaining $92.3 million funds everything you can imagine. Road and bridge projects at $60.8, $5.8 million for new 911 system equipment and software updates there, $3.5 million for SUNY Erie, $3 million for parks, $2.6 million for the county's SAP system, which we're in the process of changing over, $2.5 million for Renaissance Commerce Park, and $2.2 million for the downtown library. Now I want to get into the big bill, because this is huge. The National Association of Counties, which is a nonpartisan organization, it's made up of Democrats and Republicans, and independents and minor party folks. The current board actually leans Republican, and the current president is a friend of mine, J.D. Clark from Wise County, Texas. He's a Republican. I consider him a moderate, good guy. But NACO has issued a report calling the one big, beautiful bill the big shift, because it will shift an estimated $1 trillion in essential service costs from the federal government down to state and local governments, with the vast majority of this taking effect in 2027. You can find this report online. Just type in NACO, big shift, and you will find the report. Erie County, like most other counties, is particularly vulnerable to this law because we serve as the front line for implementing federal and state health and human service programs, of which the big bill directly impacted, and which NACO determined under the big shift will push costs to state and local governments. $1 trillion in total, they're believing. These new mandates will likely put future budgets under immense strain starting in 2027. They looked at SNAP changes and the impact on SNAP and the reduction in the amount of administrative assistance we get from the federal government. At the same time, we're going to be required to do more work, which means we have to hire more people. So we're going to get a 25% cut to SNAP administrative reimbursement from the federal government, and we're going to have to increase the amount of people that we have because we're required to do more recertification of files. More individuals are going to be needed to review those files. Just to give you an idea, if someone is on SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, they get certified. They basically get certified annually. Under the new law, if their income changes at all, we have to recertify them. So if somebody worked 40 hours a week, qualified for SNAP, and now they work overtime and they get 45 hours in that 1 week, we have to recertify it, even though it's only a 5-hour difference. It's that onerous. It's that extreme. And at the same time, we're going to be getting less money from the federal government to do the work. So we're going to have to pay out of our own pockets to perform more work than what's really necessary, and it's going to have a huge impact. That's SNAP. Medicaid and HEAP. Medicaid, of course, massive cuts. We're expecting that tens of millions of dollars of new costs are going to be passed on to Erie County government. We're very worried that we could see the phase out of the hard cap. Most of you have never heard of it, or at least don't remember it. It's been a long time since the hard cap was talked about. But New York State implemented a cap on how much growth there could be on an annual basis with Medicaid for the counties. And they've been assuming the rest of the increase. Well, we're very worried the hard cap's going to disappear, which could have a huge impact on the county. It's saving us almost $200 million right now from what we would be paying otherwise. If the hard cap was eliminated, we'd be in trouble. HEAP, they cut $2 billion in funds from HEAP, and the entire low-income home energy assistance program in the federal government office was eliminated as a result of the big, beautiful bill. Now, we know how important HEAP is for our community. It is huge. It keeps people's houses heated during the winter. And if there's less money coming from the feds, we're going to have to put more money in locally. This is all going to be passed down to us locally, and we're very fearful about what this will be. We also included the maps for, as you see, for SNAP and Medicaid and HEAP, because this affects not just northeastern states, Democratic states. This affects states across the country, states that are controlled by Democrats, states that are controlled by Republicans. It's going to have a huge impact. That is why NACO issued a report that was exceptionally critical of the big bill, because it is going to really hurt local governments. Not really as much in 26. It takes effect in 27 and beyond. And that's why we are very concerned about the 4-year plan. We are required to put a 4-year plan together. We often see small gaps in the out years, but we have never seen gaps in the out years like we're seeing right now, which we're expecting potential gaps of $90 to $100 million in the out years. This is going to be impactful. This is going to hurt. This is going to have an impact locally. And there's only a few ways in which we can address that, unless it changes in Washington, which is, I think, one of the reasons why you have a shutdown now and a fight between Democrats and Republicans, because Democrats are trying to change these very onerous provisions in the bill. There's only a few things we can do. We can do significant cuts to people's mandates. We can reduce mandated services to the minimum legal levels, that has to come from New York State. We don't get to choose that. That has to come from New York State. Significant cuts to people's mandates, scaled back capital improvements, additional increases to taxes and fees, job cuts, either by attrition or actual layoffs, or an increase in the property tax rate above the New York State tax cap. I've already talked to some legislators about our current year budget, as we're 26, I should say, the proposal, but 27, to let them know. 26 budget is sort of setting the standard for what we're going to have to be dealing with. It gives us some time to try to address what are the very onerous provisions associated with the 27 budget. It's not good. This is not for this upcoming year, but the 4-year plan has some significant shortfalls that we have not seen in many, many years. And we're concerned. And so we're sort of ringing the bell now so people understand and the legislators understand they can't just go and say we're going to spend more money, we're going to spend more money, because it's going to get ugly in about 15 months when the 27 budget starts, unless there are changes in Washington. So this is our big concern. The 26 budget summary, it's the most challenging budget we've had in a few years. We do see an increase in the budget, almost most of it for mandated expenses. We have limited new spending. We're able to reduce the property tax rate, which is still the lowest tax rate in Erie County history. And we will be planning for the big shift, which will come in 2026. I want to turn it over to my Deputy County Executive and Budget Director in case I want to add anything else. So, would you like?
Sure. Thank you. You know, the budget process is very interesting because there's no start and stop. It is constantly analyzed each and every day. I want to thank the commissioners for the work that they did in looking at their departments and making some hard decisions. For somebody who works on health and human service initiatives and with partners each and every day, I am extremely concerned about the future of Erie County and the services that we provide each and every day to our residents. I always thank the county executive for the work he has done on budgets year after year. He has done an outstanding job of saving for times that we need them most. I think that this is the time where we are looking at a future that is very disheartening. So I want to thank him for his work and his leadership. Of course, Mark Cornell and his office, this is the work that he does each and every day. Of course, extremely challenging. He does such a great job, and I would like to thank him. Thank you.
Mark, a few words?
I think the only thing I would really add is due to the leadership of the county executive and sort of my predecessors in the budget office, we were one of the few communities that came out of the COVID-19 pandemic stronger as opposed to being weaker. We had the opportunity to utilize almost the entirety of our $178 million of American Rescue Plan funding for generational infrastructure projects. And after that, we had a number of years where the county had significant budget surpluses, mostly predicated on the restoration of state aid cuts and some changes to sales tax regarding internet sales tax specifically, that allowed the county to become very creative and responsive to the community's needs and implement a lot of new programs and plans and do a lot of wonderful work. We are now getting to the point where we need to focus on maintaining all of that work that's been done over the last several years rather than adding on at that point. A lot remains to be seen, frankly, when we're thinking about the out-year gaps in 27 and 20 and beyond. Those are going to be dictated almost primarily by decisions from New York State within the next year. We are going to have a better idea of what costs we actually are going to bear in terms of Medicaid specifically with the state budget that will be released in this coming April or the April after that. That is when all of this is going to become particularly real. So our goal right now is to be flexible, not go beyond our means, and be ready to implement the sort of planning that went into the, frankly, dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. We did a massive debt reduction plan, and that's the reason that we were able to get out of that stronger, and I'm confident we'll be able to do the same thing, should these worst scenarios come to fruition in the next couple years.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for your work as well as your team's work. This was very difficult. Just to finish before I open up the questions, Gothamist, the public radio out of New York City, Jimmy Vilkeen did a story a couple days ago about how Blake Washington, the New York State Budget Director, sent a memo around to all the department heads and offices about how this is going to be one of the toughest budgets the state has to deal with in many a year, at least since COVID. But as Mark said, we will have a much better idea of the impact for 27 and beyond based on what New York State does. If they protect the counties, we'll be tight and we'll have problems. We'll have additional costs to handle, but we probably will be able to handle it. If they lift the hard cap on the Medicaid amounts and other things, it's going to be really ugly. With that, I'll open up to questions. Mr. McKinley.
Yes, sir. Given what you said, do you think there's any appetite in all to cut mandated services to minimal levels, or at least bring them in line with what other states offer?
For those who are watching online, the question was, do I believe that there's any appetite in Albany to cut minimum services, minimum
To cut mandated services.
cut
to
mandated
minimal
services
levels,
to minimum
or at
levels,
least bring them in line to what other states
or
have?
bring them in line to what other states have? I know what the Assembly and Senate would like to do, and they always want to spend more. Also understand in the most recent budget, they actually gave the governor some power to make changes to the Medicaid system in the middle of the budget year, which they've never done. So I think they understand what's coming. We'll have a much better idea once they actually complete the budget. If you ask me what their preference is actually to increase the program. But I'm at least glad to know that they're not sticking their heads in the sand after what we saw from the most recent budget that was approved in New York State, in which they did allow the governor to make some modifications mid-year, which they never have. Now, we're just going to have to wait and see.
The other question I can't really offhand here, when you mentioned you looked out into the future, 90 to 100 million, I think you used the term gap. Is that another way of saying a projected deficit?
It could be, yes. 90 to $100 million based on what our expected revenues would be for those years. So, which is, we always have small little gaps when you look out for like 2 or 3 years in the future. That just always happens, but we're talking less than $10 million or so. Something that we can handle by making adjustments, or we just get better revenue numbers.
You use the term gap. It's interchangeable with.
Yes. We are not in a deficit situation, and the 26 budget is not. But if things don't change, we could be, because of really the big bill. It's all related to that. Has nothing to do with what we're dealing with locally.
Identifying the gaps at this point allows us the opportunity to now do something about them. Obviously, they are going to fluctuate. In usual cases, when you look further out, you have worse data to work with and bigger assumptions that you're making. But this is going to be sort of our roadmap going forward of understanding where we have some liabilities, where are going to be areas where, if we need to, we're going to make cuts to, or areas where we can possibly generate additional revenues that aren't subject to the federal government in other ways. So this is us trying to look ahead and be very, honest with ourselves about what the future may look like, so that we have an opportunity to make changes if those worst case scenarios were to come to fruition.
In the 26 budget, there's not a single layoff. There are deletions of vacant positions. There's not a layoff. We're leaving that on the table for 27, 28, and beyond if needed. Everything will be on the table. It's out of our hands is the sad part. It's really going to depend on, do they make changes to these Medicaid and SNAP rules in Washington? If they don't, and they continue as the bill passed, then what's New York State going to do? And if New York State passes the buck down to the counties, it's going to not be pretty.
You said that you deleted 50 positions that weren't filled because your rule say, hey, we can fill them in a year. You
Yeah.
don't need them. How many total jobs added? I got it as 30. Is that correct?
Mark, how many jobs is the question?
So there are a net of 17 new full-time jobs included as part of this budget proposal. That is 29 minus 12 deletions. So those are the full-time positions. If we're looking across everything, that includes all of the other deletions of part-time, RPT, and seasonal, we're actually looking at a net reduction of 20 positions total, because the vast majority of those deletions that happen, that 50 that we just discussed, those are predominantly the part-time, seasonal, and RPT.
Are there any other questions on topic? I will entertain some off-topic if there's any off-topic. If not, the budget will be online later today, so you can find it on the Erie County website in a PDF document. It is being distributed today to the legislature as well as other independently elected officials. And I just once again want to thank the budget team for their great work. This is a long process, a difficult process at times, especially when we had as many requests for new jobs and more spending and we had to pare it down. But I want to thank them for their great work. And the budget team never really gets time off because they're still in the middle of their current budget year, so we have to manage that while also proposing a new budget and dealing with all the other stuff that we deal with in county government.
Actually, just one. Is there a surplus for the county right now?
Surplus?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are trending to a positive variance for the 2025 budget year, and we have a fund balance, a piggy bank, so to speak.
How much is there?
Our unassigned fund balance is $149 million, and that equals about 10% of the general fund expenses.
Which is what they, rule of thumb, you should have 10% or more in the rainy day fund, right?
Correct.
The reason I ask is that's the first thing those guys across the street always want to dip into, right?
Well-
Say, if you got this,
David, you, I, and Sandra are probably some of the only people in this room who were kind of around during that red-green fiscal crisis, because I was elected in '05 to clean it up, and one of the reasons they created the red-green fiscal crisis is they dipped into their fund balance and used it all. And that's a terrible, terrible way of managing government, and we see another government that's unfortunately dealing with that right now, not too far away in the city of Buffalo, where they use their fund balance for a whole bunch of years, and now they don't have it other than a small amount that they're mandated to have and they can't touch. Yes, we do have a fund balance. We have a piggy bank, so to speak. It's about 10% of our overall budget. We have a law that requires us to have at least 5%, but the recommendation is 10%. It's one of the reasons why we've gotten and received credit rating upgrades in the last couple of years, and we're AA rated, is because we have a good fund balance, and we would not want to deplete that. Otherwise, not only would we see our bond rating reduced, it would generally mean, if we're depleting fund balance, that we are structurally unsound. We're paying for our ongoing expenses with non-reoccurring revenue, which is a really bad situation and something I've said I'd never do as county executive.
and what do you do with that? Do you invest it, or does it?
Well, it's invested.
sit in the-
Well, there's not like a certain amount that's sitting in the bank at any one time. It goes up, it goes down, and then you make the analysis at the end of the year. But when we have extra cash, it's actually invested through the comptroller's office. And when the last few years, when interest rates were higher, we've done very well on the investments and generated additional revenue that way. Now that interest rates are dropping, we're expecting to receive less in interest off that, which means less overall revenue that we could use for other purposes.
Can you talk a little bit about spending in this budget for the Bill Stadium?
Well, there is hardly any money in the 26 budget for the Bill Stadium other than really debt service. We're done. We're out of it. Once the stadium is transferred over to New York State, we no longer have any operating, game day, other types of obligations to the football team. That will happen in 26. So there's a small amount. I think it's $1 million. Yeah,
It's a hair over $1 million,
it's a
two
mil-
$520,000 payments.
which is really going to go for just life-saving issues at the current facility, and then to just finalize some stuff with the new stadium. And that's it. We're done. We no longer have any obligation other than the debt service, and that's saving county taxpayers, truthfully, more than $100 million easily during the life of the borrowing. It's probably more than $200 million now that I think about it over a 30-year lease. It was one of the key things that I wanted as part of the lease negotiations for the county to be out of the football business, because we are paying costs associated with operating. We're paying costs associated with infrastructure. We're paying a game day amount. And that's going down to zero. And that's a win for all of us. And we kept the team in town. That was good. All right, thanks, everyone. Have a good day.